During colonial time, women's work was vastly unappreciated and extremely limited. Wives were expected to stay home, cook, clean, take care of the family, and make their husbands happy. It was socially unacceptable for women to contribute to or participate in the family's finances. That was considered to be the man's job. The War of 1812 showed America that changes were needed in transportation and production efficiency. From the cotton gin to interchangeable parts and urbanization, it was apparent that a revolution was taking place. Factories sprang up with faster processes of production, creating an abundance of new job opportunities. However, factory jobs paid insufficiently and women were forced to seek employment in order to sustain a tolerable lifestyle. Most women found work in domestic services, textile factories, and piece workshops. Men began to feel threatened by women's appearance in industrial jobs. They felt they were having to compete for jobs against an unworthy opponent. Nonetheless, this transition of women's work from the home to the factory sparked the beginning of women's changing role in society. Women earned greater recognition in 1872 when Congress passed a law which granted women federal employees the same wages as men for performing the same tasks. This further established equality between employees of different genders. And despite the fact that it was only applied to federal jobs, it was still a major accomplishment for women workers. In 1881, women laundresses in Atlanta, Georgia, who were primarily African American, became increasingly wary of their work. They labored long, hard hours and earned an average of merely $4 to $8 a month. They often had to get help from their children in order to increase their wages. Laundress Sarah Hill once stated, "I could clean my hearth good and nice and set my irons in front of the fire and iron all day without stopping. I cooked and ironed at the same time." Not willing to put up with these conditions for any longer, a group of 20 laundresses came together to form the Washing Society, a trade organization. They went on strike demanding higher pay. The organization expanded rapidly, from 20 to 3,000 workers in only 3 weeks' time. It also showed how crucial the women workers were to the success of the South's economy. On April 6, 1917, the United States entered World War I and helped to shatter the stereotypes of women's work. One newspaper stated, "There has been a sudden influx of women into such unusual occupations as bank clerks, ticket sellers, elevator operators, chauffeurs, streetcar conductors, railroad track walkers, section hands, locomotive wipers and oilers, locomotive dispatchers, block operators, drawbridge attendants, and employment in machine shops." As men poured into the army to help fight overseas, their jobs were left behind in America. Women filled these positions, therefore they were introduced into many male-dominated fields, where they didn't have the opportunity to work before the war. The Pennsylvania Railroad was constructed during this time by 4,000 women workers. In addition to obtaining men's jobs, women were also introduced to new jobs, created by the war demands. Factories opened for the production of bombs, ammunition, and other war-related supplies. These new employment opportunities decreased unemployment rates, and the economy boomed. Newspapers started to recognize women's success in education, employment, and other aspects of society. This recognition gave them a status and an acknowledgement of their importance to the nation as well as the war effort. Even more progress was made with the United States Women's Bureau of the Department of Labor, a federal agency that represents the needs of women wage earners, which was established by Congress in 1920 with the responsibility to formulate standards and policies which shall promote the welfare of wage-earning women, improve their working conditions, increase their efficiency, and advance their opportunities for profitable employment. Women's great participation in the war effort and their achievements in previously male-only jobs demonstrated their abilities and showed that they were equally as capable as males in many aspects. Eventually, the war ended and males came back to reclaim their pre-war occupations. and factories dedicated to producing war supplies shut down, causing a spike in unemployment and contributing to the Great Depression of 1929. From the 1929 crash of the stock market to the onset of World War II, there was a deep recession, as well as a determination of highly traditional cultural values informing America's experience of economics and culture. After World War I, American women readily entered the workplace where they could. However, they constituted roughly 25% of the labor force during this time, and their unemployment rate was much higher than that of men's. Unemployment rates were even higher in women of different ethnicities. In the 1937 National Census, black women in the North had a 42.9% unemployment rate, compared to the 23.2% rate of white women. Women employment during this rough time often infuriated men, who felt they were more deserving of jobs. Norman Cousins stated,
"Simply fire the woman who shouldn't be working anyway, and hire the men. Presto, no unemployment, no relief rolls, no depression."
Despite the opposition, women continued to work in order to make ends meet. Men had a harder time finding jobs, since industry and factory jobs were the hardest hit by the Depression, and it was socially unacceptable for them to cross over into the female-dominated occupations, such as housemaids or nursemaids. The Depression kept the woman employed, and their roles in society were as important as ever, even though it mainly went unnoticed. Unfortunately, it reinforced the woman worker stereotypes and strongly identified a woman with staying home, cleaning, and caring for the family. This was a major step back from the great progress made in World War I. This all changed December 8, 1941, when Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, and the United States formally declared war and entered into World War II. It is widely believed that the turning point for women's presence in the workplace took place during this time. Much like World War I, women were recruited for defense industry work while their husbands went off to war overseas. Women filled the factories, producing a large amount of wartime supplies, including planes, weapons, ammunition, and ships. As a result, the woman labor force grew by nearly 6.5 million. The amount of married women employed outside the home rose from 13.9% to 22.5%, and the amount of women employed as domestic servants declined, going from 17.7% to 9.5%. Apart from domestic and industrial jobs, 350,000 women served in the U.S. Armed Forces, either in America or abroad. Being in the armed forces further demonstrated ways that women supported and provided for their country. By the end of the war, women had proved their worthiness as employees. Throughout their struggle, many men doubted them and believed they were inferior. But time and time again, women progressed and rose above the limitations of social stereotypes. Today, there are 9.1 million women-owned businesses in the U.S., representing nearly 40% of all businesses. Women employ 27.5 million people and generate more than $3.6 trillion in sales. Whatever preconceived notions you have about women in your workplace, women in general, women in business ownership, throw them out. They're myths. Looks like the 2000s will be the decade of the woman. Mauricio Velasquez.